Lo scorso 18 e 19 maggio a Roma si è svolto il nono workshop sul prezzo dei farmaci, un appuntamento molto importante che ha visto riuniti esperti nel mondo dell'accademia, delle istituzioni e delle imprese farmaceutiche. Questo evento è stato organizzato dalla società Pharmalex e ha toccato anche diversi punti da una prospettiva europea. Noi oggi abbiamo il piacere di avere con noi Herbert Altmann, a capo del market access, del pricing e del reimbursement per tutta l'Europa per quanto concerne Pharmalex. Buongiorno Herbert. La prima domanda riguarda il Joint Clinical Assessment, una procedura che fa parte del nuovo regolamento europeo che dovrebbe entrare in vigore all'inizio di gennaio del 2025. Ecco, vorrei chiedere ad Herbert se il Joint Clinical Assessment cambierà significativamente il modo in cui i farmaci vengono valutati e rimborsati e può sapere la sua opinione su questo fatto.
Thanks, Daniele. A very good question, an important question to think about. In 2025, the new regulation will be implemented. And it's the thought of the European Commission and the member states which made this decision to make this a mandatory process. So that in the future, in 2025, for example, all oncology products and ATMP products should go first into a European process, which is the joint clinical assessment, which is evaluating what kind of clinical data are presented on a European basis. In 2027, that will also count for orphan drugs, and in 2030, then also for the rest of the products in the pharmaceutical and the medtech area. Now, it's very important that manufacturers know when they do the clinical trial design what is expected in Europe and how is the process that this clinical assessment is taking place. Right now, all the criteria evaluated and the process is established. And it's the first time that across Europe, jointly, the different HTA bodies are assessing the clinical value of a drug. In this context, it is necessary to define, for example, the comparator and also the PICO scheme. And of course, in this environment, it's important that manufacturers and healthcare system assessors, which are the HTA bodies, are playing together. It is expected that this joint clinical assessment report, which is going in parallel to the EMA, the regulatory process. So sometime before the CHMP opinion, the dossier will be submitted from the manufacturer. And sometime after the EMA approval, the dossier report will be ready. And this joint clinical assessment report will then be distributed amongst all the member states so that all have this clinical report, assessment report in hands and an additional data point to do the local assessment. So in the future, it will not be possible, most probably, if everything is going well with implementation, to directly go to a country and get an assessment there without having been before in the European environment with this joint clinical assessment procedure.
A company will need to provide two different assessments, one for a European perspective and the second one from a country perspective, or it will be a unique dossier?
No, I expect it will be two different processes, exactly as you described. First is the only clinical assessment based on the European point of view. And once this dossier report have been done and you go to the different countries, Italy, Spain, Germany, then you may have additional requirements locally which you have to complete. So you need to do an additional dossier also, and that's very important because the joint clinical assessment is not at all talking about reimbursement and pricing. So that's all in the hand of the member states. So reimbursement criteria, which kind of patient population will benefit or will get this product reimbursed, and what is the price in the country, is very individually agreed between the manufacturer and the individual country. So we have one joint clinical assessment report, all the same for Europe, and then individual dossiers which will then lead to reimbursement and pricing.
Seconda questione riguarda appunto così, sapere un po' il suo punto di vista da una prospettiva europea riguardo al ruolo dell'Italia in queste procedure, nell'attuazione di queste procedure molto importanti dal punto di vista regolatorio.
I think Italy is an important country and has an important role to play in developing the rules and the parameters for assessing the products in the future. This is a procedure which I said is implemented in 2025, which need a lot of clarification, especially for manufacturers and product developers, to know what kind of data are needed in Europe to get the clinical assessment positive and make this innovation available. So far, we have 3 countries which are very much in the leadership role in developing the regulatory, the regulation rules. On the one side, it's Germany together with EQUIC and GBA. Then it's the HTA in France, and it's the SIN in the Netherlands. They took a leadership role also because they want to make sure that their local systems are not much confronted with a new legislation which is then different and that they may need different requirements. Other countries than the 3 that I mentioned are all participating, of course, across Europe, but more in a reactive way, contributing whenever needed, but not so much actively influencing this process. And I think Italy, and of course the health authority, IFA, has a lot of experience, especially in what kind of clinical data will also lead afterwards on the local system to reimbursement and pricing for a drug. How does a new innovation really fit into the local environment, in the Italian environment? So I think it's very important to ensure that from the beginning, also Italy is involved and contribute with the great experience that the people and the organization have. Also acknowledging that there is, this is a very important market for pharma manufacturers. They don't want to only bring a product and innovation to Germany or France. They also want to launch it in the rest of Europe. Italy, Spain are very important countries, and therefore it's highly recommended that also Italy and the different authorities are participating in already the development of the procedure, the PICO schemes, for example, which is a very important part of the regulation, and then also to ensure that the interpretation of the joint clinical assessment report is well received on a local Italian situation. So yes, definitely, I hope that IFA is getting even more involved. They contribute already, but even more involved than today.
Grazie Herbert per quello che ci ha raccontato, è stato veramente molto interessante, sono argomenti molto nuovi, quindi è bello apprenderli da chi appunto ha questa visione europea, insomma, un po' nel suo DNA. Grazie ancora.